The sun was just beginning to dip, casting golden light over the glass walls of Salon Luxe, the most exclusive salon in the city. Inside, soft jazz played in the background, mingling with the gentle buzz of hairdryers and quiet chatter. The air was cool and fragrant with expensive essential oils, a space made for the rich and glamorous. Then the front door opened slowly, and Sophia stepped inside. Her presence was gentle, almost quiet, a woman dressed in a plain blue kurta, sandals worn from use, her hair tied back in a loose braid. She carried no designer handbag, no shiny jewelry, only a soft smile and eyes filled with warmth. The receptionist, seated behind a marble counter, looked up from her phone. Her expression froze for a second, then shifted into one of thinly veiled disapproval. Her eyes traveled quickly over Sophia, noting the modest clothes, the absence of makeup, the lack of branded accessories. She forced a smile, the kind that held no welcome. "Yes? Can I help you?" she asked, her voice flat. Sophia stepped closer, politely folding her hands. "I was hoping to get a hair wash and a basic facial. Nothing fancy." Behind the receptionist, two stylists lounging near the coffee bar exchanged glances. One whispered something behind her hand, and the other stifled a laugh. The receptionist didn't bother hiding her disdain. She glanced at the screen, though the gesture was unnecessary. The salon was half empty. She leaned forward slightly, lowering her voice in mock regret. "I'm sorry, ma'am. We're fully booked today. You should have made an appointment." Sophia looked around. A couple of chairs were empty, and one stylist was scrolling through her phone. She hesitated. "I don't mind waiting," she offered, her voice gentle. A woman sitting nearby, draped in a sleek satin gown and sipping herbal tea, looked up sharply. Her manicured fingers gripped her clutch. "Excuse me," she said loudly. "Are we letting just anyone walk in now?" Sophia turned toward her, puzzled. The woman continued, voice dripping with superiority. "There's a standard here. Maybe you should try somewhere more affordable." The receptionist didn't respond. Instead, she gave a small chuckle and turned back to Sophia. "Ma'am, we really don't have anything available. This salon caters to a very specific clientele. You understand, right?" Sophia's lips parted, a quiet protest on the edge, but she closed them again. Her cheeks turned a shade darker. She nodded slowly. "I just wanted—" She stopped, realizing it wouldn't matter. One of the stylists walked over, arms crossed. "Should I show her out?" she asked, loud enough for everyone to hear. The receptionist gave a slight nod. "Please." Sophia looked around once more. No eyes met hers with kindness, just stares, judgmental and cold. The stylist motioned toward the door. "This way, please." Sophia didn't argue. She simply lowered her eyes, clutched her cotton bag a little tighter, and walked toward the exit. Her steps were light but heavy with something unseen, a quiet pain that didn't demand attention. She paused briefly at the door, turned back for a moment, not to plead or explain, but just to understand why kindness had no place in this room. "Thank you," she said softly. No one replied. The glass door clicked shut behind her, sealing her out. Inside, laughter resumed. The stylist snickered. The woman in satin whispered something, and the receptionist laughed loudly. Just then, the manager walked in, adjusting the collar of his blazer. "What's going on?" he asked. "Just some woman looking for AC and free service," the receptionist replied with a smirk. "We sent her on her way." The manager chuckled. "These people never learn. They think they can walk into places like this and be treated like queens. Maybe we should put up a dress code sign." The joke landed well. Laughter echoed between the marble walls, mingling with the hum of blow dryers and the scent of lavender. Outside, Sophia stood at the corner, waiting for an auto, her eyes still soft, her pride intact. She didn't cry. She didn't raise her voice. She simply looked up at the sky for a brief second and took a breath. What they didn't know was that the woman they had mocked, insulted, and cast out like she didn't matter would soon return. And when she did, it wouldn't be as the quiet woman in sandals. It would be as the wife of the man who owned the very land they stood on. An hour passed. The late afternoon sun was beginning to fade, casting long shadows across the parking lot of Elan Lux. The atmosphere inside the salon had returned to its usual hum of privilege, soft conversations, the clink of espresso cups, and the gentle whirl of hairdryers. The receptionist sat comfortably at her desk, scrolling through social media, occasionally throwing glances at the entrance, but no one out of the ordinary seemed to arrive. Until the low growl of a powerful engine echoed just outside the glass doors. A sleek black SUV rolled to a slow stop. It wasn't just any vehicle. It was the kind that didn't need an introduction. Matte finish, tinted windows, and the unmistakable presence of wealth and authority. The driver stepped out first, tall, suited, and serious, opening the back door like it was a ritual. Out stepped Dawson. He wore a tailored charcoal gray suit, sunglasses that reflected the entire facade of the salon, and an aura that made people turn without understanding why. Every movement he made was calm, calculated, and commanding. The staff inside the salon noticed immediately. Conversations died down. The receptionist straightened her back, smoothed her hair, and quickly stood, her voice suddenly higher, sweeter. "Good afternoon, sir. Welcome to Elan Lux," she beamed. "Do you have an appointment?" Dawson didn't answer immediately. His eyes scanned the salon, sharp, assessing. The stylists at the back stood still, some even whispering among themselves, trying to guess who he might be. A business tycoon? A celebrity? His presence didn't invite curiosity. It demanded respect. "I'm here to see the manager," Dawson said, his voice calm but with an edge that silenced the room further. "Of course, sir," the receptionist chirped, turning quickly to call out, "Mr. Kalra, sir, someone's here to see you." The manager emerged from the back, fixing his tie and putting on his usual rehearsed smile. "Good evening. I'm Kalra, the salon manager. How may I assist you, sir?" Dawson removed his sunglasses slowly, revealing eyes that held no amusement. "I believe earlier today, your staff turned away a woman named Sophia." The manager blinked. "Sophia?" he echoed, confused for a second. Then realization dawned, and a nervous chuckle escaped him. "Oh, yes. Well, sir, we do maintain certain standards. Unfortunately, she didn't quite fit the clientele we usually cater to." Dawson's jaw tightened. "You mean she didn't look rich enough?" There was a pause. The entire salon seemed to freeze. "I don't think that's what we meant, sir." The manager tried to recover, his voice shaking slightly. "We were simply protecting the brand image." Dawson took a slow step forward. "That woman you humiliated is my wife." The silence that followed was crushing. The receptionist's smile vanished. The stylist stopped pretending to work. The woman in satin from earlier went pale. "She is not only my wife," Dawson continued, "but also co-owner of this very property. This land, this building, every inch of it was a gift I gave her. And yet, she was judged and thrown out by the people meant to represent our values." The manager stammered, We had no idea, sir." "If we had known—" "That's the problem," Dawson cut him off, voice cold. "You treated her like she was invisible because she didn't look wealthy, because she didn't fit your shallow idea of worth. You laughed at her, you insulted her, and now that you know who she is, you're ready to bow?" The receptionist looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. Her hands trembled slightly on the desk. "Sir, I'm so sorry. It was a mistake. We had no idea." "You didn't need to know," Dawson snapped. "You only needed to be decent human beings." His voice carried across the salon, heavy with disappointment. "This place was built not just for luxury, but to reflect the values we believe in: grace, humility, and service. And today, you failed all three." The manager swallowed hard. "Please, sir, give us a chance to make things right." Dawson didn't respond immediately. He looked around at the eyes that now couldn't meet his. "You'll get your chance. My wife will return shortly, and she will decide what's next." With that, he turned away, sunglasses back on, the silence behind him louder than any apology. The doors opened again and closed with a soft thud, but the room remained still, the weight of shame settling over every corner. No one laughed now. No one whispered. Judgment had arrived in the form of truth, and it had worn a perfectly cut suit. In the stillness that followed Dawson's departure, the staff of Elon Lux lingered in nervous silence, haunted by what had just unfolded. But elsewhere, in the comfort of a quiet car ride, Dawson sat beside Sophia, his hand gently resting over hers. The city passed by in streaks of fading light, but neither spoke for a moment. Instead, Dawson's mind wandered back to the first time he had met her, not in a grand ballroom or at a glamorous event, but at a small roadside cafe. Sophia had been sitting alone, sipping tea from a chipped glass, wearing the same kind of simple kurta she wore today. She had been laughing, softly, with a child selling flowers, not turning him away, but buying one and tucking it behind her ear like it was the rarest jewel in the world.
There had been a kindness in her, an ease, a strength that didn't come from loudness but from the quiet grace of someone who knew who she was. It had stunned him. In a world obsessed with image, she carried no mask, only honesty. And that was what made Dawson fall. Not just once, but over and over again, every time she chose compassion over pride, every time she walked away from arrogance without letting it stain her soul. She turned to him now in the car, her expression calm. "I don't want them punished," she said softly. "I just want them to understand." Dawson nodded. "They will." When the black SUV pulled up once again in front of the salon, heads turned through the large windows before the doors even opened. The same staff stood frozen, the receptionist visibly flustered, the manager pale and stiff in his posture. This time, it was not Dawson who entered first, but Sophia. She stepped out with the same calm she had shown before, her kurta fluttering gently in the breeze, her sandals making no sound on the glossy marble floor. But beside her now walked a man the world feared and respected, and suddenly her presence felt like a storm in disguise. They entered together. The staff scrambled to their feet, but Sophia raised her hand ever so slightly. "Please," she said, her voice as gentle as ever. "There's no need for dramatics." The manager stepped forward, his face a mix of guilt and embarrassment. "Mrs. Dawson, we're deeply sorry. We didn't know." Sophia looked at him, her eyes kind but steady. "Would you have treated me better if you had known? If I had come wearing a diamond necklace instead of plain cotton? If I had driven here in a luxury car instead of taking an auto?" He looked down, ashamed. Sophia's gaze swept across the room, not accusing, but questioning. "Do you only value people by the brands they wear, their bank balance, their hairstyle?" No one answered. "I came here because I wanted a simple service," she continued, "but I was turned away, not because there was no space, but because there was no respect." The receptionist's eyes welled up, her lips trembling. Sophia took a breath and continued, her tone never rising. "I didn't come back for revenge. I don't want you to lose your jobs. I'm not interested in making a scene. I came back to remind you that dignity isn't worn on a sleeve. It's lived through action." Dawson remained behind her, silent, proud. He watched her command the room without ever raising her voice, without anger or humiliation. That was her strength, the kind that couldn't be taught in salons or boardrooms, the kind that made kings bow without a word. Sophia stepped forward slightly. "From this moment on," she said, "I want every person who walks through this door to be treated with the same respect, whether they come in a Bentley or on foot, whether they wear designer gowns or simple cotton. No one should ever be made to feel less." There was a stillness in the room, not from fear, but from the weight of realization. Every word she spoke landed with quiet power. No one could meet her eyes. She turned to the receptionist and gently added, "When you look at someone, try to see them. Not just their clothes." The young woman nodded slowly, her voice caught in her throat. "Yes, ma'am." With that, Sophia gave a faint smile, not of triumph, but of peace. She turned to Dawson, who offered his hand. She took it, and they walked back toward the door together. As they left, the silence in the salon wasn't one of guilt alone. It was of awakening. They had seen wealth before. They had styled celebrities and business tycoons. But today, they had witnessed something rare. Not the power of money, but the authority of quiet strength. The morning after Sophia and Dawson's visit to the salon, the media exploded with stories. It didn't take long for the footage of Sophia's calm confrontation with the staff to surface online. Social media was ablaze with both support and outrage. Some praised her composure and strength, calling her a beacon of humility and grace. Others criticized the salon for its elitism and poor treatment of clients. News outlets ran the story all day. Images of the luxurious salon juxtaposed with clips of Sophia's composed face, the husband who stood silently beside her, and the manager's panicked expression. But the attention didn't stop there. Within hours, authorities had begun investigating the salon's practices. Complaints about discrimination started flooding in from others who had experienced similar treatment. What had started as a simple instance of elitism had now turned into a potential legal matter. The salon faced accusations of customer mistreatment and violation of public accommodations laws. Inside the salon, the atmosphere was tense. The staff, once proud and dismissive, now avoided each other's gaze. The manager spent hours behind closed doors, speaking with lawyers, trying to salvage the reputation of a business that had prided itself on exclusivity. Yet the damage was done. News outlets had already uncovered the deeper layers of the story. The salon's reputation had been tarnished, and the people responsible were left to reflect on the consequences of their actions. Sophia, however, wasn't seeking revenge. She understood that people made mistakes, especially when blinded by their own biases. Later that week, she met with the manager of Elon Lux. Dawson, as always, stood beside her, silent yet unwavering. "We don't want your business to fail," Sophia said, her voice as soft as ever. "But you need to understand the seriousness of what happened here. The way you treated me was wrong. It wasn't just about me. It was about how you treat everyone who walks through that door. What you did wasn't about the clothes I wore or the car I drove. It was about a lack of respect." The manager, his face now devoid of the arrogance that had once defined him, nodded deeply. "I understand, Mrs. Dawson. We were wrong. I deeply regret my actions." Sophia smiled faintly. "Regret is a start. But now, we need change. You will be retraining your entire staff. This salon should be a place where dignity and respect are not earned by wealth or appearance, but extended to everyone equally." Dawson, who had remained quietly by her side, spoke up. "And that's not all. We'll be funding a program for this salon, and others in the industry, to teach respect, humility, and proper customer service. Every client deserves to feel valued, not judged by how they look." The manager, humbled, agreed immediately. "Thank you. I can't undo what's been done, but we will change, starting now." Sophia nodded, satisfied with the commitment to reform. This isn't about punishment. It's about doing better, and I'll be watching to ensure you do." As they left the salon, Dawson's hand found Sophia's, and she squeezed it gently. The weight of the past few days lifted with each step. They walked to the black SUV waiting outside, the very same one that had taken them here just a few days ago. As the door shut behind them and the car pulled away, Sophia looked out the window, watching the city pass by in a blur of lights and shadows. "You did well," Dawson said, his voice filled with pride. Sophia turned to him, offering a small but genuine smile. "We did well." The car drove in silence for a moment, both of them lost in their own thoughts. Finally, Dawson broke the quiet. "Do you think they'll change?" he asked. Sophia's gaze softened as she looked out at the bustling city beyond. "Change takes time," she said, her voice filled with quiet certainty. "But as long as they remember the lesson, that's what matters." He nodded, leaning back into the seat. The truth had been made clear, and while the journey was far from over, the message had already spread far beyond the walls of Elon Lux. True class wasn't something that could be bought or worn. It was found in how you treated others, regardless of their appearance or status. As they drove off into the night, hand in hand, the world around them seemed a little brighter, a little kinder. Sophia's lesson had been learned, not through force, but through grace and strength. And in the end, that was the greatest power of all.